we're going to learn about adding polynomials. Okay, let's first start by reviewing this concept of like terms. Okay, we've seen this before. We saw it a lot first semester. Remember, like terms have the same variable and exponent. Okay, and this is not new information, but we're going to see a lot more this semester of terms that have exponents, like an exponent of 2. Okay, this has an invisible exponent of 1 and an invisible exponent of 1. Okay, so some examples of like terms. So for example, 3x and negative 5x. These are like terms. Okay, they both have an x, that's the variable, right? The variable is a letter. Often we use x, but we can use n, we use p, we can use any letter to represent a variable. And remember, the exponents are the little numbers like this. Okay, so these are like terms because they both have a variable of x, and they both have an exponent of 1. This is an invisible exponent of 1 on these x's. Okay, these are also like terms, 2n squared and 7n squared. Okay, notice it doesn't matter what this number is. This number is called the coefficient. Doesn't matter about that. It doesn't matter if it's one's positive, one's negative. That's not what makes it like terms. Also, like terms are like this, like negative 8 and 4 are like terms. These numbers are actually called constants. These are like terms because they don't have a variable and they don't have an exponent. Okay, so in that sense, they have the same variable and the same exponent. So just be careful, like non-examples would be, for example, 3n and 3x, right? Those are not the like terms because they don't have the same variable. Okay, we can't combine those. We can combine like terms. We can't combine those. We can't combine 4n and 3n squared. Those are not like terms. We can't combine those. Okay, so just be aware, right? Those are like some common mistakes. All right, take a moment, just pause and match the like terms right here. Just go ahead and try it to give yourself a chance to process what was said. Okay. All right, so hopefully you matched. And it looked like this, right? 4x and negative 9x are like terms. 5n squared, and this is 1n squared are like terms. And of course, negative 3n and 5n are like terms, all right? So let's talk about adding polynomials, okay? And here's what the problems are gonna look like. And here's the silly part. These parentheses are super important in a little bit. But right now, the parentheses mean nothing. For right now. When there's just a plus sign right here, it just means I'm adding this bunch of terms plus this bunch of terms. So I'm just going to go ahead and combine all the like terms. I can't combine terms that are not like, so these parentheses literally mean nothing. The parentheses are going to be super important in a day or two, a week or two. They're going to continue to be important, but for right now, they really just don't mean anything. All right, so on this first example, I'm going to just basically ignore the parentheses. You can even like kind of scribble them out if you want to, but I'm going to combine my like terms. So I'm going to use underlining. So like 3n squared, what's 3n squared like terms with? I'm looking for another term that has n squared. That would be 4n squared. And notice this is they're both positive, right? I'm going to combine those. Here I have a negative 6n. Notice when I underline, I'm underlining the sign as well. So when I underline, that underline goes all the way underneath the sign as well. And this positive 5n is like terms. They both have an n, no exponent. And then finally, these two constants are like terms because these are both constants with no variable. So I'm going to combine. So 3n squared plus 4n squared is 7n squared. Negative 6n plus 5n. Okay, let's just make sure we're remembering, right? That's negative 6 and positive 5. This turns into zeros, and I'm left with negative 1. So this is negative 1n. It looks like this. You could put a 1 there. It's nice to just write it without the 1. And then this is positive 9, positive 3. That's just 9 plus 3. That's a total of 12. Okay, and here's my answer. Okay, now this word sum, this word is not new. It means the answer to an addition problem. Okay, so if I'm asked to find the sum of this and this, that is the same as taking this guy, this expression, and adding it, right? Because I'm finding the sum, so I'm finding, well, what would happen if I added these together? Okay, so same. Again, the parentheses don't mean much. I could have even chose to just write it without the parentheses, right? I could have just written it like this, without, totally fine. Either way is okay, but I'm going to combine like terms. So I notice this is 1x squared and 4x squared. Those are like terms. Look, notice this. It doesn't have any like terms. There's no other terms with an x in it. It's okay. And then, okay, I'm going to combine. Please make sure you're always writing your answer in what's called standard form. Okay, so that means the exponents are from least to greatest. So like, see how this has an exponent of 2 and this has an exponent of 2? I'm going to combine these. So this is 1x squared plus 4x squared. That's 5x squared. Okay, now you might be tempted like, oh, I'm going to just combine these like terms next. Please don't do that. Always write it like x squared, right? This is an invisible exponent of 2. This is an invisible exponent of 1. And it's almost like this has like an invisible exponent of 0 on it. We'll talk more about that later. But just always write it with like the biggest exponent, then just with the x, and then the constants with no variable at the very end. So notice here, right, I did, this was a 1x squared plus 4x squared. Now I'm going to just bring down this plus 5x. And now I have -7 and -8. So that's 7 negatives, 8 more negatives. Notice these don't cancel. This does not turn to a 0. What turns to a 0 is only a negative and a positive. So this is just 7 negatives, 8 more negatives. That's a total of 15 negatives. Okay, looks just like that. Go ahead and pause, try these 2 problems, and you're all set for your homework. Okay, and I'm just going to put the answers here real quick so you can just check, right? These are like terms. Notice there's a 3 on this. This one didn't have a like term. And then these 2 were like terms. Okay, here I'm finding the sum. So I'm adding these all up. That's 6x squared minus 10x, right? This is negatives and more negatives. Nothing cancels here. And here, this is the same as -4 plus 10 is the same as 10 minus 4. That's +6. All right, that's it. Don't forget to submit a picture to Canvas.